Hi guys, I'm going to explain what is verbal communication, basic verbal communication skills, effective and listening, the four types of verbal communication, and the verbal communication skills. First is verbal communication. Verbal communication is the use of words to share information with other people. It can therefore include both spoken and written communication. However, many people use that term to describe only spoken communication. The verbal element of communication is all about the word that you choose and how they are heard and interpreted. Verbal communication in a work setting takes place between many different individuals and groups such as co-workers, bosses, and subordinates, employees, customer, clients, teachers, students, and speakers and their audience. Verbal communication occurs in many different contexts, including training session, presentation, group meetings, performance, one-on-one discussion, interviews, disciplinary session, sales speeches, and consulting engagements. Basic verbal communication skills, effective and listening. Effective speaking involves three main areas that you choose how you say them and how you reinforce them. With it is worth it considering your choice of words carefully. You will probably need to use different words in different situations, even when discussing the same subject. How you speak includes your tone of voice and pace. Verbal communication includes language, speech, and words. Speaking is an effective way of communicating and helps expressing in our emotion of words. This form of communication is further classified in four types, which are intrapersonal communication. This form of communication is extremely private and restricted to ourselves. Includes silent conversation with ourselves, wherein we jungle roles between the sender and receiver who are processing our thoughts and action. This process of communication, when analyzed, can either be conveyed verbally to someone or stay confined as thoughts. Interpersonal communication. This form of communication takes place between two individuals and is thus a one-on-one conversation. Here, the two individuals involved will swap their roles and of sender and receiver in order to communicate in clearer manner. Small group communication. This type of communication takes place between only when there are more than two people involved. Here, the number of people will be small enough to allow each participant to interact and converse with the rest. Press conference, board meeting, and team meetings are the example of this communication. Unless a specific issue is being discussed, a small group of discussion can be chaotic and difficult to interpret by everybody. This lag is understand information completely can result in miscommunication. Number 4, public communication. This type of communication takes place when one individual addresses a large gathering of people. Elections campaign and public speeches are examples of this type of communication. In such cases, there are usually a single sender of information and several receivers who are being addressed. Here are the verbal communication skills. Avoid distractions, listen carefully, do not interrupt the speaker, maintain eye contact, be clearer while speaking. That's the verbal communication. I hope you understand and thank you for listening. Have a good day.
Hi guys, so today I'll be showing you the list of nonverbal communication that I use in order to talk with my friends through online with this pandemic going around. It is really hard to talk face to face, especially since we are away from each other. So I'll be showing you what are the gestures, facial expressions that I make during an online class or during video call with my friend because gestures or facial expressions are really important. Especially if your mic are turned on or the one you're talking to cannot hear you and they can understand what you're saying because you're choppy. Therefore, nonverbal communication is the key. Stay tuned and watch.
Nonverbal communication is the transmission of message or signals through a nonverbal platform. With the pandemic being around, one of the ways I can be able to communicate with my friends, teachers, and classmates is through video chatting with the use of Google Meet and Messenger. When we talk, we do not only use verbal communication or the use of words, but we also use nonverbal communication such as our facial expressions, our gestures, our body languages, and the auras we emit. Gestures are really helpful for us during an online class, especially when our mics are not turned on and we only have our cameras. So we can use our thumbs to signal okay to our teacher, or we can nod our heads when we understand what they are trying to say and shake if we don't understand at all. We may not also notice it, but there are times when we speak, we accompany it with gestures. This proves that words without actions are meaningless and actions without words are confusing. Lastly, nonverbal communication plays a significant role in our lives as it can improve a person's ability to establish meaningful interactions in their everyday lives.
Many think that communication is just about the spoken word, but verbal communication is not the only form of communication. Nonverbal communication is equally important. We are both verbal and nonverbal communication to communicate our thoughts, ideas, and plans to others. For example, you imagine that you are being introduced to a new person. Where quickly extends their hand, make eye contact, and smile to you. Without saying a word, they have conveyed to you that they are friendly or polite and they're pleased to meet you. And that person could rapidly shake your hand while telling you how happy they are to meet you. Their enthusiastic body language matches their verbal message, such as a please is to meet you, showing that their message is genuine and trustworthy. As a matter of fact, in certain cases, nonverbal communication is more than important than verbal communication. As a function, its meaning is situational and contextual, but communicating is incomplete without it. Nonverbal communication may often stand on its own and deliver important message. It creates a wider understanding on message being transmitted. With you and nonverbal communication are connected, but the sender and receiver of the message understand the message intended meaning, and they shall respond appropriately. The message is sending and receiving process is efficient and delivers the objectives.